How are you doing? My name is Bilikis. You're welcome to my channel. If you are new, please subscribe. You see a notification bell. It's just a tiny bell. Click on it. It helps you get a notification each time I put up a video. Today's tutorial will be on how to make a girl designer dress, and trust me, it is very beautiful and easy to make. I made a quick sketch which I'm going to show you, and then we go about how to make it. Making use of this material for the outfit. Looking at it, I've sketched it here. It's just an A-line dress for a girl of 4, but looking at it, it is divided into 2. This is the yoke that cut across from the shoulder straight to the sides, and this line you are seeing will be an inverted pleat. The back will just be a normal A-line dress, but the front will be divided into 2. Going over to the measurement, the shoulder measurement will be 9 inches, the chest circumference is 22 inches, half of the armhole I'll be using is 5 inches. The length of the dress, that is from the nape of the neck down to where it will stop, is 24 inches. The neck width is 2.5, while the neck depth is also 2.5. So right now, let's go draft on our paper before cutting it out. Here I have my paper folded into 2. You could have drafted on 1, but because this is divided into 2, so we are going to be cutting out the yoke first before we go to the inverted pleat. That was why I folded it this way. Can you see that? Then you need to determine the length of the dress. For this, it is 24 inches, but I'm going to make it 25 because of seam allowance at the lower part. So first, you need to determine if this is up to 25. I have 25 here. That's good. Then half of the armhole measurement is 5 inches, which from here down here is 5. Can you 5 inches? That's half of the armhole measurements. So this is the full length. The next thing now is to insert the shoulder measurement. Here the shoulder measurement is 9 inches. Half of that is 4.5. So I'm just going to insert 4.5 here. Insert this same 4.5. I'm going to insert it here. Then draw a straight line. So that's for the armhole. Here now I'll just come down by 1/2 inch. Then measure 2.5 inches here. Or 2 inches. 2.5 or 2. For this I can make it 2 inches. Because it's for a 4-year-old. And I'm just going to connect it. That's the shoulder slope. So let's leave that for now. Then we'll go to the chest circumference. Chest circumference here is 22 inches. So when I divide that by 4, it will give me 5.5 inches. Here, 5.5 inches is here. You can decide to add his to it, but I'm just going to leave it at that 5.5, which is here. Then you won't forget the side seam allowance of 1 inch. So I'm going to add extra 1 inch to it, which will be here. I'll then have to connect straight down here. So what I will do now is this. I'm going to measure whatever I have here and then add extra 2 inches to it at the lower part. So here I have 6.5. The quarter of the chest measurement is 5.5, then plus 1 inch for side seam allowance, making 6.5. So I'm going to bring that here. This is 6.5 plus extra 2 inches. That will make it 8.5. Then I'll connect in a straight line. Let me see what I have. I'm going to come up by 1 inch from this lower part. From the lower part here, just go up by 1 inch to make it curvy. Now this is what I have. Now let's go over to the armhole area. So what I will do now is to get the midpoint of this. This is 4.5. Half of that is 2.25, which is here. Then I'll just go in by 1/2 inch, which is here. Then I'm going to make the front armhole and the back armhole. First, the front armhole. Can you see that? Then for the back, So this is the front and this is the back. We are going to use this to cut out the back panel before we go to the front panel. Then for the neck depth, I want it to be 2.5. 2.5. The neck width now is going to be 2 inches. Here I have 2.5 for the neck width, but I changed my mind. I'm just going to make it 2 inches. 2 inches will be here. Then I'm just going to connect that. So this is 2 inches. That's for the front. Then for the back, I'm just going to come down by 1 inch. It's going to have a zipper, but I'll show you how to go about that. That's for the back. This is for the front. You can decide any type of neckline you want for that. So I think this is fine. So the next thing now is to cut it out. So when I get here, I'm going to cut the back armhole first because we are going to cut that before the front. Then the back neckline. What I have. Now I'm going to cut the back panel before we now concentrate on the front. Right now I've folded the fabric. Can you see that on the wrong side? Then because we are cutting out the back panel and it's going to have a zipper, then I left 1 inch seam allowance. This will be the baseline. I want to cut off this selvage. So this is 1 inch. 1 inch. Then I'm going to place the pattern exactly 1 inch away. Can you see that? Make sure you pin it down, but I'll just cut mine. That's for the back. So when I get to the shoulder area, I'm just going to leave 1/4 inch for the shoulder seam allowance. Then this part will be straight. Can you see? So that's the 1/4 inch for the shoulder seam allowance. I'm just going to slit this open, or better still, I can cut the facing before slitting it open, but I can just use one piece. This is for the back panel. Can you see that? I'm just going to opening up the front panel now. We need to make a curve from here down to the side. To make it easier for you to know where to end the curve, just measure from the armhole area down here. Here I have 19, so half of that is this. Just fold into 2. Then I have 9.5. So 9.5 is here. Then determine where you want the curve to start. So somewhere around here is fine. Then I'll take my hip curve to just curve that out. This is what we want to achieve. Can you see that? So this is the 9.5 mark from here. So placing this way, but I still want the curve to start somewhere around here. Can you see that? So what I will do is this. And from there, I can just curve it out. Can you see that? and play around with this side to have a perfect curve. Can you see what I have? And this is what I have. Can you see what the curve looks like? Now I'm just going to cut this off. This is what I have now. What you do now is this: after cutting all these panels, we need to add this back together. So just write add half an inch seam allowance so that you won't forget. Here too. Can you see that? So I'm just going to set this aside. But there was something we forgot. We forgot to take out the armhole for the front. Please just don't forget. So what I will do now is this. Just place this way. And then I'm going to trim it off for the front. Now the front armhole has been trimmed off. Don't forget that. Then the front neckline. That. So add half an inch seam allowance, don't forget that. Then we need to set this aside. Now is to determine the width of the inverted pleats. That is the width in which we are going to fold it to face each other. And the width of 2.5 inches on both sides is okay, that is 5 inches. Meaning the distance from one of this panel to the other is going to be 5 inches. 2.5 on fold, 2.5 on fold is just okay. So I'm going to separate this as 5 inches interval. So just make sure you start at this. So what you do is this. So just okay, at least this space is okay. So with my pattern master or your L curve, you can just get a straight line. So with this is a straight line. Can you see that? So this will be placed on it. Measure 5 inches from this point here. This is 5 inches. So that means this will be 5 inches away from this point. Can you see that? So what I will do again is to use my pattern master to get a straight line. So can you see what I have? So this is 5 inches away from each other. So that means we'll have 2.5 in between it. Can you see that? 2.5 in between. Then from this point again, I'm going to measure 5 inches from this point. So I'm going to make a straight line, then measure my 5 inches. This is what I have now. Can you see that? So before I just tape it down, I'm just going to draw the midpoint. Can you see the midpoint? So what I will do now is to fold my paper. Going to be like this. Can you see that? Then I'm going to fold this to come to this midpoint. So this is what I will now have. This will be here, this will be here. Can you see that? So I'm just going to fold this also before taping it down. Now after folding it up, this is what I have. So when you open it up, this is what it looks like. So I'm just going to keep it folded. Can you see that? Then place each panel close to each other for taping it down. Make sure the lower part aligns. Can you see that? And I'm going to just tape it down. Have it all taped down, but don't forget to have the seam allowance we need, 1/2 inch. So just use your measuring tape to add 1/2 inch seam allowance, but I could just eyeball it, but please make sure you add the 1/2 inch seam allowance. The seam allowance has been added. The next thing is to cut out. We already added the lower part seam allowance. This is what we are going to cut on our fabric. It has been placed on the fabric. I'm just going to cut it exactly as the pattern, but firstly by pinning it down, then I'm just going to cut the exact same thing. The pattern has been cut out on the fabric, but before I start removing my pin, just make sure you use your pen to notch all the places where the inverted pleat is going to be, both above and below. Then I can remove all the pins. This is what it looks like. So the first pleat would be this. This is on the right side. Then you need your pressing iron. And I'm just going to give it a good press. Can you see that? Then I'm going to bring this to this point. Just take your time. Can you see that? I'm going to press that too. On this, then I pick up this again. You see that? Then I'll just give it a good press. Can you see that? After giving it a good press, this is what I have. And then I have to cut out the yoke. Can you see that? And I added the 1/2 inch seam allowance, and also at the shoulder, just like I added to the back panel. So the first thing, then do not forget to cut out your facing for the front and then for the back. Another thing is this: you have to secure these pleats. So what I will do is to take to the sewing machine and then run a basting stitch just all through from the beginning here, all through, just to secure the pleats. Then we can start sewing it up. The next thing now is to cut the flounce. What is here is the flounce. So what you will do now is to just fold over your fabric. That is if you want to turn it with the flounce, or better still, just on a plain fabric. Then you can just hem the lower part. That totally depends on you. So I want the length to be 2.5 inches with seam allowance inclusive. So what I'll do now is this: I'll measure 2.5 inches here, 2.5 inches here, 2.5 inches here, 2.5 inches here. Then I can just make a circle. 2.5, 2.5. So after forming the circle, I'll just keep measuring. After making the circle, I'll just go up by 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch. Then form a curve. Then make an angle 45 here, just a straight line, and from there I'll start measuring 2.5 inches. Can you see that? Until I get the desired length I want. So when I get to the point where I started, I'll just continue from this circle. Can you see that? So to determine the length of the flounce needed, what I'll do is this. I'm just going to measure these points, which will be a guideline for me. So here I have like 20.5. So that will be the guideline. So when you want to measure, this is the starting point. So you are going to measure from here round, and you keep extending it as we go. So let me check what we have already. So since it's 20.5, I can just make it 22 to be on the safer side. So here I still have 16, so I still need to do some more. Now I have about 28 or so. So just to reduce this, I will just make this curve this way, and this very one I can just make it this way. So I'm just going to cut this out. One and a half years should be okay for this outfit. Then this was the initial line, but I want a tiny tail at the end, so that was why I just cut it out. So this will be going up. Now this is what I have. Can you see that? So now since it's on the wrong side, I'm just going to sew quarter of an inch all through. This is on the wrong side, then bring it out on the right side. Right now I've secured the pleats. Can you see that it has been secured? Then I've turned out my flounce. Can you see that? You can use just a single piece and then use your roll hem to finish it up. Then having done that, now I want to attach this back to this, and this flounce has to be attached along with it. So what I'll do now is this. I will have to gather this up to the exact measurement of what I have here, and it will give it more volume and wavy effect. I'm just going to gather it, then bring it back. Now the flounce has been gathered. It's just going to run from the shoulder area down to the sides. Can you see that? Now what I will do now is this. I'm going to make this right side face that side. Can you see that? Then I'm going to take my time to pin it down, and then just sew half an inch. Seam allowance we left all through. Looking at it, you can see how beautiful it is. So the more flounce, the more you gather, the more beautiful it will become. Can you see that? On the wrong side, this is what it looks like. I just overlock it all. So setting that aside, after attaching it, then I cut out the facing for the front. I also cut out that of the back. The next thing now is this. I just have to fix the zipper. I have an invisible zipper here. So what I will do is this. Note where I want the zipper to end. I want it to end around this point. Can you see that? Then I'm just going to close this up to this point, then attach my zipper, leaving half an inch to turn the facing. Now the zipper has been fixed. Can you see that? I use an invisible zipper. So what I will do now is to attach the facing separately. Now make sure the right side is facing each other. Then I'm just going to take quarter of an inch at the neckline, the armhole area. Then I'll come over to this part, place the right side facing this side, bring out the seam allowance. Can you see that? So I'm just going to sew it this way, the neckline, excluding the shoulder, and also the armhole area. I'm going to do that for this, so I'll be able to bring it all from here. Looking at it now, I've taken the armhole and the neckline. All I have to do is to bring it out. Now this is what it looks like, so I'm going to give it a good press. Then for the back, this is what I have. Can you see? I'll just use my pressing iron to finish it all up. Now I've given it a good press, and you see how beautiful it came out. So the next thing now is to join it by the sides, by the shoulder, and then the sides, and hem the lower parts. I'm just going to do that and show you the final look. This is the final result of the outfit. You can see it's so beautiful and nice. Just make sure you try to make this for your kids. And if you make yours, please share with us on our Facebook group, Sewing Innovation. Hope my tutorial has been helpful. If it has, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.